Hyperinflation occurs when prices rise by at least 50% in 1 month, or 1,000% per year. These massive price changes happen quickly, making common items unaffordable. Economists have predicted that it will cause significant price increases of goods and services, the value of the U.S. dollar will plummet, and economic activity will stop. These are the 12 items you need to buy to prepare for what's coming. Number 12. Gasoline. American drivers have been panic buying gasoline in recent days, leading to lengthy lines, gas station closures, and concerns that doctors and teachers won't be able to get to work. The U.S. inventories of diesel and gasoline are presently suffering from tight supply. Numerous factors contribute to the supply strain, including the situation in Ukraine, refinery shutdowns, natural disasters, and an explosion at a Philadelphia refinery. You may have heard that the U.S. only has 25 days' worth of diesel left. Historically, global supply crises have been limited to oil, but fast-changing natural gas markets are also in crisis. A growing and more flexible liquefied natural gas market had allowed global gas supply competition. This was not possible when gas was supplied via pipeline or LNG under long-term contracts. Europe and Asia compete for the same LNG supply, driving up prices in both markets and extending the current tight market to the United States. Number 11. Canned meat. If you go to the supermarket when hyperinflation hits, you'll see empty shelves in the meat section, among other shortages. You will also be restricted to buying 1 or 2 packs of whatever's available. Try not to look at the prices. They're almost definitely higher than what you're used to. This is the new reality, an America where beef, chicken, and fish are not quite as abundant or affordable as they were even a month ago. The 2024 events will hit the meatpacking industry hard, as some of the worst monetary shocks in the United States will occur. Canned meat has a much longer shelf life, so it's definitely something you want to keep in your pantry. Number 10. White rice. From China to the U.S. to the European Union, rice production is falling and driving up prices for more than 3.5 billion people across the globe, particularly in Asia Pacific, which consumes 90% of the world's rice. Multiple reports indicate that the global rice market is set to log its largest shortfall in 2 decades in 2023, and a deficit of this magnitude for one of the world's most cultivated grains will hurt major importers. The accumulated rainfall in the country's Guangxi and Guangdong province, China's major hubs of rice production, was the second highest in at least 20 years. Similarly, Pakistan, which represents 7.6% of global rice trade, saw annual production plunge 31% year-on-year due to severe flooding last year, labeling the impact as even worse than initially expected. Number 9. Water filtration. Scientists are warning that many regions of the United States will see their fresh water supply reduced by as much as a third. Of all the freshwater basins that channel rain and snow into the rivers from which we draw the water we rely on for everything from drinking and cooking to washing and cleaning, nearly half will be unable to meet consumers' monthly demands. This will mean serious water shortages for Americans. Shortages won't affect only the regions we'd expect to be dry, with as many as 96 out of 204 basins in trouble. Water shortages will impact most of the U.S., including the central and southern Great Plains, the Southwest, and central Rocky Mountain states, as well as parts of California, the South, and the Midwest. Across much of America, it is assumed that we have more than enough water, but that same month, as storms battered the country, a government-backed report issued a stark warning. America is running out of water. Number 8. Medical supplies. Shortages of medical devices can occur for many reasons, including manufacturing and quality problems, geopolitical issues, natural disasters, delays, public health emergencies, and discontinuations. The U.S. healthcare system is facing supply shortages that dwarf the problems experienced in the early days of the 2020 disaster. Back then, shortages were more urgent, but today's problems include a much wider array of equipment. They can be traced to component scarcity, backlogged ports, transportation glitches, and manufacturing issues in China. Much of the attention on the supply chain crisis has focused on automakers and electronics companies dealing with factory closures in manufacturing hubs such as Shenzhen and Shanghai. But the effects of hard-to-find supplies of medical devices and supplies are severe too, and impact doctors' offices and operating rooms across the U.S. Number 7. Blankets and clothing. For decades, cotton has been the foundation of many home furnishings products, such as sheets, towels, bedding, rugs, clothes, to name a few. That will change soon, very soon. A perfect ecological and political storm is emerging that threatens cotton's dominance as the preeminent raw material for so many home products. A 1-2 punch of seriously rising prices, combined with severely limited supplies, is already starting to impact the marketplace. But the full effect of these changes will not be apparent until the start of 2024. The same environmental factors that are taking a human toll and devastating food crops around the world are also impacting cotton fields. The impending shortage of such an essential material, one that many of us have likely taken for granted, will upend the home furnishings business in new ways over the short and long term. No matter where you look, cotton is in crisis. In the U.S., which is the third largest grower of cotton in the world and the largest exporter, this year's crop will be significantly smaller due to drought in prime growing areas. The worst hit is Texas, which accounts for more than half of the country's output. Forecasts say that could be cut by half from last year, totaling more than $2 billion in cotton. A recent New York Times article reported that many Texas cotton growers aren't even planting to harvest large swaths of their fields due to the meager crop they will yield. Number 6. Alternate fuel sources. Higher energy prices have contributed to painfully high inflation, pushed families into poverty, forced some factories to curtail output or even shut down, and slowed economic growth to the point that some countries are heading toward severe recession. Europe, whose gas supply is uniquely vulnerable because of its historic reliance on Russia, will face gas rationing this winter, while many emerging economies are seeing sharply higher energy import bills and fuel shortages. One of the alternatives for home use is rocket stoves, and it's designed to burn fuel more completely, using the heat produced to heat the food or surroundings. This means they use less wood in comparison with conventional stoves. Various fuel sources such as wood stoves and propane tanks are also recommended as alternates. Number 5. Basic home repair tools. Though home service labor shortages are widespread, we found uneven availability of where skilled help can be found for homeowners. Nationally, there are approximately 55 home service workers per 1,000 homeowners, but the figure does not break 40 in 19 metro areas. The gap between demand and supply in home services will continue to grow over the next decade. Data from multiple reports show that job growth is expected to be slower than the national average in 6 of the 8 home service jobs. The 2 exceptions are electricians and pest control workers. From 2021 to 2031, studies project that the number of electricians and pest control workers will grow by 7.1% and 6.8% respectively. Low-cost preventative measures like cleaning your gutters or using storm windows can help keep common home repair costs down. But when a pipe bursts and floods the bathroom, you can be on the hook for thousands of dollars. By evaluating your home's weak spots, you can plan ahead and include certain repairs in your budget. Everyday repair tools are one of the essentials we recommend every homeowner to acquire. Number 4. Flour. The global grocery crisis of the last few years has been particularly unkind to food staples. Eggflation, meat prices, and cooking oils have finally started to plateau, and now it looks like flour is next on the chopping block. Hard red winter and hard red spring are the two largest classes of wheat grown in the U.S., and a year of extreme drought has resulted in a lower yield, so much lower that analysts are anticipating wide-scale supply chain shortages and price gouging. The first inklings of this looming epidemic cropped up last spring when whiplash periods of heavy rain and flooding were followed by extreme drought in the south-central U.S. The USDA's most recent national seeding scorecard shows that 75% of all wheat in the Central and Southern Plains region is growing in drought conditions. Kansas, Texas, Colorado, Nebraska, Montana, and South Dakota were all labeled burgundy, which is the most severe level on the drought monitor map, and none of it looks good for 2024's flour prices. Number 3, solar. More than half the U.S. and parts of Canada, home to around 180 million people, will fall short of electricity during extreme cold again this winter due to lacking natural gas infrastructure. In its 2024 winter outlook, the regulatory authority warned that prolonged wide-area cold snaps threaten the reliability of bulk power generation and availability of fuel supplies for natural gas-fired generation. Recent extreme cold weather events have shown that energy delivery disruptions can have devastating consequences for electric and gas consumers in impacted areas. It puts the U.S. Midwest, Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, and South, along with some Canadian provinces, at the highest risk for electricity supply shortages this winter. It also found that load forecasting in winter is growing in complexity, and underestimating demand is a risk to reliability in extreme cold temperatures. Solar solves the problem partially, as little to no sun is visible during winters, but during the sunny days it is a viable solution. Number 2, mushrooms. Growers face several challenges to meet erratic demand. Mushrooms need about 6 to 12 weeks to grow, and this includes producing compost and preparing planting beds so that the area can support up to 3 harvests. Growers also need to repack catering-sized boxes into 8 to 24-ounce packs. Producers are also struggling to get the right kind of compost to grow mushrooms in. Some growers may make their own compost, but others buy commercial, and compost companies haven't had much luck with raw materials. Farmers use stable bedding to grow mushrooms, and now they're having a challenge finding enough compost. So even if mushroom demand is back, those of us who love mushrooms and recognize it to be the healthy ingredient that it is will have to wait a while. Retailers can expect shortages of mushrooms to a high degree for the next 6 to 10 weeks, experts warn. Number 1, cooking oils. Vegetable oil, an essential in everything from pizza dough to shampoo, is in short supply, largely because of weather disasters and the growing use of biofuels to replace fossil fuels. A global biofuel boom is set to drive a shortage of vegetable oils used for cooking and now increasingly to power trucks and planes, intensifying a debate over food versus fuel. The problem now is demand is cutting into supplies used for food, raising the question of what should take precedence, feeding the world population or fighting weather change. From the U.S. to Brazil and Indonesia, governments are embracing energy made from plants like soybeans or canola, or even animal fat, to move away from fossil fuels and cut emissions. This has created opportunities for vegetable oils, especially palm oil, an ubiquitous but controversial ingredient found in products like pizza dough, instant noodles, chocolate, and shampoo. Make sure to comment down below on what you think and leave a like if you find value in the content we do here on this channel. Hit the subscribe button for all the latest updates, and we'll see you in the next video.